So let's get into it. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Wednesday webinar. And today we're focusing on the interoperability and in particular the new Interoperability Handbook. We're going to fall over that a few times today. And the guidance that's going to help us to move into making sure that policing is more interoperable across the board, more consistent. So the handbook actually defines what interoperability is for policing, and it's the ability to share structured and meaningful information across organisational boundaries. And that's a simple definition, but it carries a really big ambition. This means that systems can connect, data can be connected and understood, and organisations across policing and beyond our partners can work together. And this is also so suppliers can build with policing's ambition in mind. We know this really matters because policing can't deliver the national reform that we're all talking about, better performance, better productivity, and better effectiveness, and improve the use of data and particularly artificial intelligence without strong data foundations. And if our systems remain fragmented, then the data remains harder and we get more duplication. We can't realise those benefits that our officers and staff and ultimately the public really need. So today I'm joined by Brendan, who's going to explain the purpose and the practical use of the handbook. Milana will talk us through the interoperability layers, standards and adoption journey. And importantly, Simon Hall from Tech UK, who is actually from industry. So he's going to be giving us that industry perspective and reflect on how suppliers can support adoption. I'm going to come to Brendan first of all for the question. So Brendan, could you perhaps start off by explaining why interoperability is such an important priority for policing right now and what the problem the handbook is going to try and solve for us?
Sure can. Thanks, David. Okay, so the interoperability has been important, not just right now, it's been important for quite some time. It's been called for in quite a few different strategies. It's in the Policing Vision 2030. It's in the National Policing Digital Strategy. And last year, it has the Technology Reform Strategy had a whole section on interoperability. But why is it important right now? Why is it more important? It's really because of the reform white paper. That has shifted the ground slightly. It has changed the context of interoperability. Interoperability is no longer a stretch target or an ambition. It's a must-do thing that we have to do now. It's no longer optional. Interoperability is now an enabler for policing reform, and that is the intent of the handbook. The handbook is there to try and move interoperability from being just the ambition to something that is tangible, something that we can actually implement. But there are quite a few challenges, and we're all very aware of them. We know policing has a very complex digital landscape. We have various approaches to our procurements frameworks. We have legacy systems. So there's quite a lot of problems to overcome there, and one of the biggest challenges is our inconsistent approach to applying data standards as well. But if we make even small changes to improve interoperability, it will improve the quality of our data across the policing landscape. So if we start, if we make even just tiny changes to our data standards and our APIs, it will reduce duplication of effort. It will reduce double keying. It will improve data sharing, and I guess importantly, it will help us access the right information, the correctly structured information when we need it. And it's not just a policing kind of challenge as well. I mean, this is across the wider law enforcement community as well, that interoperability applies to.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to come to Milan next, and the handbook really does give us that clear definition, which I've already described. But I think it's important we actually understand what that means in practical terms, and especially for people who may not come from a technical background. So, Milan, perhaps you could take us through what that actually means for people.
Yeah. So it's so for us, there are 4 levels of interoperability. So you've got foundational interoperability, which is the basic ability for systems to connect and exchange data through common transmission mechanisms without requiring the data to be interpreted or understood. Then you've got structural interoperability, and which is the ability for systems to exchange data in a more consistent and structured format. So, for example, is using agreed standards or schemas, so it can be reliably processed by the receiving systems. Then you've got semantic interoperability, which is the ability for systems to exchange data with a shared meaning and using common vocabularies or data models, so that the information is understood consistently by both the sender and the receiver. So example of this is like the Poll Data Dictionary. So PDS has a standard site that is accessible to industry, and CJ Partners that lists all the standards. You've got organizational interoperability, which is the ability for organizations to establish aligned processes and policies and data sharing agreements that enable effective collaboration and coordinated use of shared information across boundaries. So, for example, this is data sharing agreements and multi-agency transfer standards.
And I think what it's important there, you haven't listed it about being technical interoperability. I think that falls from the other elements, doesn't it? That this isn't about technical interoperability. This enables that technical interoperability.
Yeah, absolutely. So to give a simple policing example, is an online crime report. So the system connects securely, the report is sent in a structured format, and the data is understood and interpreted using a shared model, and it then passed to the right force under an agreed data sharing agreement. So that's a really basic example, but what we are starting to do, there are pockets of interoperability going on, especially when you look at the digital case file. That is a perfect example of interoperability because it's been shared by sent by one system and received and interpreted correctly by the receiving system.
And I think this is where I'll come back to Brendan to build upon that is for a force, for a national programme, for a policing partner or even a department, looking at this handbook, what are the first practical steps that they should be taking?
So there is actually a section in the handbook on planning for interoperability, and it kind of goes through step by step, how you should assess and plan to improve interoperability for a system. So first bit of guidance is go straight to that section in the handbook. But I'll try and summarize it now. What it lays out is the first, and this is quite key, the first thing that you should do is understand that definition of interoperability. And I don't just mean that single line, the ability to share structured, meaningful information across organizational boundaries. I mean, really understand the 4 layers that Milan has just gone through. So those 4 layers are foundational, structural, semantic, and organizational. That is the key, and this is the key difference with our understanding of interoperability and one of the key points of the handbook. If you understand those definitions quite clearly, it will enable you to set realistic targets to measure progress against further down the line. So, for example, in the structural level, that's all about data standards and APIs. You may want to say we want our RMS systems to become structurally interoperable in the next 2 years, or we meet 50% of the criteria for structural interoperability. So that's the first thing. I would then use the handbook to try and assess the maturity of your systems, your interoperability maturity. I will point out at this point that we are currently also developing a companion piece for the handbook. We're developing an interoperability assessment, which goes into a lot more detail about the criteria to measure how mature your systems actually are. That's just in a spreadsheet at the moment. We haven't published it yet, but we will soon. It's got 150 questions in it, so you can use that assessment criteria along with the handbook to get an idea of how mature your systems actually are. And once you have that, you can actually set the targets. As I mentioned earlier, for example, you may want to improve the structural interoperability of your systems, or if it's a data analytics system, then improving semantic interoperability for your systems might be more important. And once you've done that, once you've actually set realistic targets, then it's about setting your short, medium, and long-term objectives. So short-term objectives, maybe some data transformation. Medium-term would be fully adopting a particular standard. And then long-term, I think what policing has to do is to really bake interoperability into their own governance and assurance processes. So it's no longer an addendum. It's this criteria and the governance of interoperability is part of our assurance processes. So that's what I would recommend.
And I think this isn't a silver bullet. This isn't going to solve the problems overnight. This is about making decisions now that help us to make good decisions in the future. We can't easily fix everything that's already that isn't interoperable. But what we've got to do now is set that instruction, set that standards, all work towards the same standards. We know police reform is going to be part of this solution, but having the Interoperability Handbook is a really part of that journey. Now, this is where we're going to be working really closely with the industry. So Simon, perhaps you could introduce yourself, and then from an industry perspective, what suppliers can take from the handbook and how can the tech sector support this adoption. And thanks for joining us all the way from Farnborough. Hopefully we can hear you nice and clearly. So Simon, over to yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much, and apologies that trying to find somewhere quiet at the Farnborough Air Show is a bit of a challenge. So first of all, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Simon Hall. I'm the CEO and of Coa Software, and also chair of the Tech UK Interoperability in Police and Justice Working Group. So I think what I wanted to say is the forum itself has been going for some time, but it brings together policing, government and industry to develop practical approaches to interoperability. It's great to see the Police Digital Services Handbook finally being launched, and we really welcome that. So that's where we are with this. And just apologies for. So I think the next question was.
What should the tech sector be doing to help us support in the adoption of the handbook?
Right. So just So I'd say that the biggest message for industry is that policing is becoming much clearer about what it's expecting from modern technology, and the handbook gives a common language and a clearer direction of travel. It means that suppliers are going to be able to demonstrate how their products connect and how they can exchange structured information, how the support is recognised, standards, and how it fits into the wider policing ecosystem rather than operating in isolation. Interoperability is good for suppliers. It reduces bespoke integration, encourages innovation, and makes it easier for forces to adopt new capabilities without replacing everything they already have. And from a Tech UK perspective, we're focused on helping industry to work with policing to turn the principles into practice.
And I think the other thing is as well about a more open approach around the APIs and that clarity about how APIs are open, standard, proprietary, but also licensing is an important part of it. How can industry help us with that?
Well, I think that's what we're trying to do. Once we've actually got, we have a real opportunity now by actually having the Interoperability Handbook as the basic foundation of what we're trying to do. And we're trying to actually move this on beyond the handbook and actually look at how we can work together with industry and policing to create effectively a interoperability marketplace, so we can start reusing some of the integrations between systems. So I think ultimately, if we can actually get a system that allows this one, then it's going to be good for policing. But it can only really happen if we actually have the interoperability as the foundation.
Now, PDS has a strategic partnership with Tech UK, and there's a Tech UK Interoperability Forum and a charter. Could you explain how that can be a route for industry engagement?
Yeah, so I mean, the last few weeks have been really busy on interoperability. So we've had a lot of work's been going on also within the Home Office with the data standards reform. And today we've actually had the launch of the handbook, and tomorrow we're actually getting policing, government, and industry together to actually take the Interoperability Handbook and actually try and work out what that means and how we can take it forward in a workshop Tech UK. So I think we've got effectively, it's probably one of the first times we've actually now got a coalition of the willing who's all trying to make this happen.
Thank you. And I'm just going to come to each of you in turn. And I think one of the important things is it is launched today, and that it will be available on the standards website, and then we'll mature the product a little bit more and iterate the product as we go forward and make it even more available moving forward. But perhaps Brendan, you can come back with and explain to me, what do you think will be, if we came back in 12 months' time, what do you think good adoption of the handbook will look like from your point of view?
Okay, so one of the main reasons why we developed the handbook was to kind of move the story along with interoperability. I think we were stuck kind of discussing what interoperability actually was and what it meant to policing for a long time. So if we came back in 12 months from now, for me, what success would look like would be if we weren't, if we moved along, that we had normalized interoperability within policing, that we understand what it is, that it's part of our, like I said earlier, it's part of our normal processes and assurance processes. So it's not just an afterthought, that it's well understood, and we're actually making strategic leaps in the way that we implement interoperability. So, and the handbook was just meant to be a reference point, like a sort of establish a common vocabulary around interoperability. So if we've done that, I think we'll be in a good spot.
And similarly for Milan, where will we be in 12 months' time? What will you be looking for in terms of the adoption?
So when you look at interoperability, this needs to be done at a thematic level. So this really is, as to follow on from Brendan's point, it's going to be an iterative approach. So we will tackle, say, RMS and sort of baseline what that looks like, and what good looks like for that, and then command and control, etc. So there are a number of different thematic areas that we need to look at. But I'm guessing sort of wider use of approved standards, open or standard APIs, shared data models, the use of common vocabularies, more systems designed to exchange accurate and meaningful and usable information without manual workarounds, so improving productivity, and better alignment between technical design, data governance, and organizational agreements.
And we've got a great comment in from Richard, who's working in the Seven Force Coalition. That's Bedfordshire, Hertfordshire, Cambridgeshire, Kent and Essex. And they're already working on interoperability. And that's, again, they see that as a way of avoiding vendor lock-in. This is part of our mission to create a vibrant marketplace that give our officers the tools to do things. And so from Simon, from a supplier's point of view, what are you going to be hoping suppliers will be doing to help us in this in the next 12 months?
Yeah, so for me, whether the success actually is going to come is going to be measured in three different ways. So first of all, if forces and suppliers are starting to use the handbook as a starting point for conversations about interoperability. The second point is more about procurement, whether procurement are asking better questions with suppliers and routinely demonstrating how they can meet the expectations of interoperability. And finally, we will have some real examples where better interoperability has reduced duplication, improved productivity, and made life for frontline officers and staff much easier. I think success isn't going to be measured by how many people have actually downloaded the handbook. It's going to be measured by whether the changes the way we design and buy and connect systems.
And I think from my point of view, looking at this will be one of those things where you'll see an explosive adoption as we go forward, as we start to move forward on this journey, and more systems become interoperable by default because it's the way the journey we're on. We talk often about the legacy of police technology and the challenge that has. The only way we move off that legacy is by designing in interoperability standards from the start. And the standards are publicly available already, aren't they, Brendan?
Yeah, yes. So we have about maybe close to 200 data and technical standards available on the National Standards Library, National Standards platform. So yeah, they're ready to use. And the ones on the platform have been the ones that policing have said they want us to adopt. So that part of the puzzle's already done.
And again, there's another great comment in here from Thomas about what are the key interoperability considerations for organisations, particularly MS Teams and chat. Now we've got the national blueprint for that. So again, it's not just about adoption of the standards, it's compliance to those standards. The blueprints in some ways give us part of that for the Microsoft side, and we are looking at further development of more blueprints and approaches that are part of that journey as well, that build in the interoperability, aren't they, as we go through. I've got some, I think some of the key messages today is that interoperability is not a side issue. It's not a technical detail. It's really going to be a core enabler to delivering better policing. Policing aren't the ones who ultimately benefit from this. Is our communities, because we're able to keep them safe. We're able to reduce crime and tackle issues. We're able to share data more effectively, and this supports the journey for national reform and improve effectiveness. So the handbook does give us that common definition. It does give us that practical framework for how we can do things, and a set of resources that can be used now. So the next step is that adoption, and that means that we've got a lot to do. So I really want to thank Simon for battling through Farnborough and doing the signal. I've done Wednesday webinars from there. It's not the easiest things, and you're on the stairwell, I can see. So thanks, Simon, for battling through, and Brendan as well. And I think there's a lot more we can discuss on this. So if you do want to get involved, do get in touch with us via the PDS website. And it is going to be a piece we are going to be discussing in detail at the NPCC Innovation and Digital Summit. So I've just popped that on screen now. You are getting a very sneak peek of our event website that is now going to be live in the next 24 hours. If you have already pre-registered for your interest to attend the summit, keep an eye on your email for the next 48, 72 hours, and we'll be starting to do the formal registration with our policing and law enforcement and public sector colleagues. If you are a supplier who's already coming along as a sponsor and exhibitor, then the team will be in touch. We're already in touch with your spots there, but we do have a small number of sponsorship options left. So if you are interested in coming along to the biggest police conference of the year, in Liverpool, you can see what's going to be happening there. We've got some fantastic speakers, got the awards dinner. We're just doing the judging at the moment for the awards. We've got some fantastic ways that the dinner is going to be taking place. You'll be able to register your details. We've improved the user experience on the registration massively this year. You don't even need a password. You'll just log in with your email address, send you a little code, and you can log in and manage your reservation and your bookings for this. It is free for law enforcement and public sector policing to attend, so it's going to be a fantastic event. But that's not the only things that we're involved in as we continue through the autumn. There's loads more webinars. Our webinars will be back in September with a vengeance. We know we always lose, we don't do them in August because people aren't around as much. We've had a great audience today, but you can always access the webinars via the YouTube channel. But thank you again for joining us today, a slightly shorter webinar than normal. It's really given us an opportunity to launch this. There's going to be a lot more discussion about the interoperability handbook as we move forward. Do come along to the summit so we can actually put the handbook in your hands in October and get more into it. But thanks everybody for joining us today and bearing with us.